so I'm really excited about this. But I am on sabbatical, actually leading into retirement. However, everything I'm going to show you is also supported by other staff in the Map Data and GIS Library, and that's where I come from. And I am a librarian, but I have a background in geography, science degree in geography. And I grew up in the Niagara area, so I'm very passionate about the Welland Canals, and that's where my research, that's what my focus is for my research. So what I do is I have a very rich collection, or Brock has a very rich collection in historical maps and air photos and photographs and et cetera, et cetera. What I do is I take that historical content and apply geographic information systems and other mapping technologies to enhance it. This research is also called historical GIS. The H stands for historical content. In my case, it could be anything, but in my case, it's the historic Welland Canals. And the GIS, of course, stands for Geographic Information Systems, but encompasses any geospatial technologies or any mapping technologies. And in my case, I take the print materials and I transform them into a digital environment so I can work with them in GIS. This could include many, many different processes and many different technologies, including creating digital data. So the Welland Canals are very, very important culturally and historically in the Niagara area. The canals are what shaped what you see today of St. Catharines and all the communities between Lake Ontario, Port Dalhousie, and Port Colborne. They were the economic thrust in the 1800s, and it has shaped our communities since then. But there are three. The current canal is over here, which you might be familiar with, that extends from Lake Ontario to Lake Erie. But there were three historic ones that have left significant landmarks in the landscape, but a lot of it is also buried. It's been obliterated, it's been developed by the city, but there are still a lot of remnants available. So I wanted to map the historic Welland Canals as they appeared on the current landscape. So I created this data, but what is really important here is that we create research data, but I wanted to visualize my data. So I made a web app to visualize my data, and I call it the Historic Welland Canals Mapping Project. And I'm gonna go by the seat of my pants here. You didn't tell us we couldn't have a link on our PowerPoint page to link to the web. Hopefully it's going to come up and I can demonstrate a little bit about this project. So this is the web app. It's very interactive, and so this is the data that I have created, a lot of work, and various processes, but everything is clickable. And one other thing that I did with this project is that I hiked every inch of the first, second, and third canals and took an inventory and documented everything that is visible. So you can see from this picture, this is the 14th lock of the third canal, that the lock wall here has been compromised by vegetation, natural processes. So this is the type of thing that I've been documenting. Let's see, okay. I want to go back here and show you something else. Another thing that was really interesting about this project and about hiking is talking to people and seeing how the canal is used in different ways. A lot of fishing happens here, and a lot of hiking as well. There's actually part of the Bruce Trail goes right along the third canal, and you can hike it very easily. Sometimes you can't. I was in many places where I probably shouldn't have been. And something else as well is that we see environmental significance. Dumped cars, for example. I think this is a Ford or a Chev, I think it is, from the 1980s. But obviously environmental significance there. And some of the other techniques that I use to enhance the project and enhance the data is to use augmented reality. So here we have used historical photos to superimpose on the current. Obviously, this is very accessible rail bridge or rail tunnel that went underneath the third canal. So we can see it's graffitied, and because it is very accessible, but we have overlaid a historical image on top so we can do that comparison. So this is a bit of technology that I experimented with. Ideally, what I would like to do is do a 3D representation of this so that you can see it in 3D, which I'm working on. But there is nothing better than seeing your research data being used. This is really exciting. This was a project that an archaeological student from McGill, a master's student, used the data and used historical photography to use 3D modeling as a way of expressing how we can re-engage the historic canals. So this is the walls of the 17th lock of the third canal. And what he has done is he's created a 3D image of what could be someday sitting between these locks. And this is actually a photo gallery. And I'll go to the next image. This is a mock-up of the gentleman walking through this photo gallery. And you can see the 18th lock in the background in the opening. So this is rather exciting. Probably will never be done, but it was a good example of how the data is used to build upon. And another project that is in the works right now is, and just to put it in perspective here, this is the Burgoyne Bridge. This is the downtown area of St. Catharines. This is a 1921 air photo. So this is an example of how historical imagery has been used to detect remnants of the canal. This is the route of the first and second canal in the 1800s. And this is a basin. This is the area of Chicluna shipyard. So this was a shipyard back in the 1800s that built ships and repaired ships. If you look at this photo very carefully, very closely, you can see the outline of what we think is a ship's hull. I'm involved with a successful SHIRP grant with a couple of geography faculty and one from McMaster, who will be engaged in an archaeological dig. This photo will illustrate where we suspect is the rib of that sunken ship. It gives a whole different meaning to sunken ship when it's now sunken on the land. Usually sunken ships are in water, but because this has been all filled in, this is a photo probably from the 1920s, but this is the area of the Chicluna shipyard back then, just a bit after the shipyard was in activity. But this is what we are going to be unearthing hopefully next summer. Okay, so that's going to be very exciting. And back to my PowerPoint. This project has actually gained a lot of attention. I was featured on the front page of the local newspaper, the St. Catharines Standard. I have done 8 talks, community, which have drawn about 100 people at each of the talks. I've got 2 upcoming. But what is so significant, and it's very gratifying, but what is so significant is that all this has really stirred up the community interest, because what we want to do, ideally, is to get heritage designation for the first and second canals, which they so deserve, because a lot of it has really gone ignored, and a lot of it is very visible. So the exposure that I have got attention from the visualization and people being able to go to that website and explore the historic Welland canals themselves is much grander than just a journal article in a publication. Not to undermine that, but what I'm getting at here is data visualization can really enhance your research. If you want any more information on that, I suggest make a visit to the Maps Data and GIS Library, where they can help you learn these technologies and use it for your own research. So,
thank you so much.
You're welcome.